An ex-Formula 1 driver just revealed something from inside the paddock, and it points to a secret Mercedes plan involving Max Verstappen that could remove George Russell even if he wins the championship. Because this isn't just a rumor anymore. There's a clause that could make Verstappen a free agent in weeks. There's a hidden loophole in Russell's contract. And there's a team that has been preparing for this exact moment for years. If all of it connects, Mercedes doesn't hesitate. They move. And when they do, someone loses their seat. And right now, all signs point to Russell. This is not just a transfer story. This is a potential takeover. One decision that could reshape the entire grid overnight. And what you're about to hear reveals why this leak is being called the most dangerous inside story of the season. At first, it sounded like just another paddock rumor. The kind that appears on a race weekend, spreads quickly, and disappears just as fast. An ex-driver says something. People react. Nothing really changes. But this time, it didn't disappear. It grew. Because what was revealed wasn't vague. It wasn't speculation. It was specific, detailed, and most importantly, it connected pieces that were already there. That's when people inside the paddock started paying attention. Because suddenly, everything made sense. The silence from Mercedes. The timing of Verstappen's contract. The structure of Russell's deal. All of it started to align. And that's when this stopped being a rumor. And started becoming a scenario. A real one. Because the leak didn't just say Mercedes wants Verstappen. Everyone already knew that. What it revealed is how they plan to do it. And that changes everything. Because for years, the biggest obstacle was always the same. There was no space. Mercedes had its lineup. Russell was locked in. Antonelli was the future. There was no way in. But now, there is. Not publicly. Not obviously. But structurally. Through clauses. Through conditions. Through timing. And this is where the situation becomes dangerous for Russell. Because his contract looks strong on the surface. Perform well, and you stay. Simple. But underneath that, there's an exception. One that only activates under a very specific scenario. If Verstappen becomes available, Mercedes can open the door. Even if Russell delivers everything expected from him. And that's the part that changes the entire story. Because now Russell is not just competing against other drivers. He's competing against a possibility. A moment that could happen, without warning. And here's what makes it even more intense. That moment is getting closer. Because Verstappen is not where he needs to be. Not in the championship. Not in control. And that activates the most important piece of this entire puzzle. The clause. If he's outside the top two by the summer break, he's free. Free to negotiate. Free to move. Free to trigger everything. And once that happens, the entire grid reacts. But Mercedes doesn't react. They execute. Because they've already built the plan. They've already studied the timing. They've already prepared for this exact scenario. And that's what makes this leak so powerful. It confirms that this isn't spontaneous. It's strategic. Carefully calculated. Waiting for one condition. And that condition is almost here. But here's where the tension rises even more. Because Russell knows it. He understands the situation. He's seen how Formula 1 works. He knows that performance alone doesn't guarantee security. Especially when a driver like Verstappen is involved. And that creates pressure that goes beyond racing. Because now every result matters differently. Every race is not just about points. It's about perception. It's about proving that replacing him would be a mistake. And in Formula 1, that's a very difficult argument to win. Because logic says one thing, but opportunity says another. And opportunity is what teams follow. Especially when it comes in the form of the best driver in the world. And that's why this situation feels so unstable. Because everything is aligned. A driver who might become available. A team that is ready. A contract that allows it. And a seat that could be opened. All connected. All building toward the same moment. But this is only the beginning of the real story. Because what happens next could make this entire situation even more unpredictable than anyone expects. But then, the situation takes a turn that makes everything even more volatile. Because this is no longer just about contracts, or clauses, or timing. It's about leverage. And right now, Max Verstappen has more leverage than anyone else in Formula 1. Because every team is watching him. Waiting. Ready to move the second he becomes available. And that changes the balance completely. Because for the first time, Verstappen is not the one being chased. He's the one controlling the entire market. He can wait. He can observe. He can let the pressure build around him, without committing to anything. And that's exactly what's happening. Mercedes is preparing. Red Bull is trying to hold everything together. Other teams are quietly monitoring the situation. And Verstappen says nothing. But that silence is not empty. It's strategic. Because the longer he waits, the more desperate the situation becomes for everyone else. And that's where things start to affect Russell even more. Because now, it's not just about a possible replacement. It's about uncertainty. Constant. Unavoidable. Every race weekend, the same question. What happens if Verstappen becomes available? And that question changes everything. It affects how a driver thinks, how he approaches risk, how he handles pressure. Because now, every lap carries a different weight. It's no longer just about beating rivals. It's about proving you are irreplaceable. And in Formula 1, that's almost impossible. Because no matter how good you are, there's always someone teams consider better. And right now, that someone is Verstappen. So Russell is stuck in the worst possible position. Doing everything right, and still not being fully secure. Leading the team, and still being questioned. Winning races, and still hearing the same doubt. What if Max arrives? And that's what makes this situation so brutal. Because there is no clear solution. No perfect performance that guarantees safety. Because the decision is not entirely based on results. It's based on opportunity. And that opportunity is getting closer. But here's where it becomes even more intense. Because the longer Verstappen waits to decide, the more pressure builds on Mercedes. Because they know something very simple. If they hesitate, they lose him again. Just like before. And this time, they might not get another chance. So now they are trapped in a different kind of pressure. Be ready, at any moment. Have the plan in place. Be able to act instantly. Because when that window opens, it won't stay open for long. And that's why this situation feels like it's about to explode. Because all sides are waiting, but no one wants to move first. Until something forces the decision. And that something is getting closer with every race. Because the moment Verstappen's clause activates, everything changes instantly. The silence ends. The calls begin. The decisions accelerate. And within days, maybe even hours, the entire future of the grid could be reshaped. And at the center of it all is one unavoidable reality. If Mercedes gets the chance, they will have to choose, not between good and bad, but between great and the best. And in Formula 1, that choice is always the same. Which is why, the real question is no longer if this will happen. It's how fast everything will change. When it finally does. And just when it feels like everything is building toward a single outcome, there's one final piece that makes this even more unpredictable. The timing. Because in Formula 1, timing doesn't just influence decisions. It defines them. And right now, everything is converging toward one exact moment. The summer break. Not the end of the season. Not months away. Just weeks. That's when Verstappen's clause activates. That's when he becomes free, if he's outside the top two. And that's when this entire situation stops being controlled, and becomes explosive. Because from that moment on, everything accelerates. Mercedes won't have time to think. They won't have time to negotiate slowly. They will have to act instantly. Because if they hesitate, someone else moves first. And losing Verstappen twice is not an option. Not after everything they've already invested behind the scenes. But here's what makes this even more intense. By the time the public hears anything, it might already be done. Because the biggest deals in Formula 1 don't happen in front of cameras. They happen quietly. Weeks before any announcement. Which means right now, while everything still feels uncertain, the decision might already be forming. Meetings. Phone calls. Discussions that never get reported. All happening in the background. And Russell knows exactly how this works. He knows that by the time questions are being asked publicly, answers already exist privately. And that's where the pressure becomes almost impossible to ignore. Because now, every race is not just a performance. It's a countdown. Every result, every point, every weekend, bringing that moment closer. And here's the brutal reality. Even if Russell leads the championship, even if he does everything perfectly, that might not stop what's coming. Because this is bigger than performance. This is about opportunity. About timing. About a team deciding to secure the best possible future, no matter the cost. And that's what makes this situation feel inevitable. Because all the elements are already in place. A clause ready to activate. A driver questioning his future. A team prepared to move. And a seat that can be opened. All connected. All waiting. Until one moment triggers everything. And when that moment arrives, it won't be gradual. It won't be controlled. It will be immediate. One decision. One signature. One move. That could remove George Russell from Mercedes overnight, and place Max Verstappen at the center of a new era. Because in the end, this isn't just a transfer. It's a takeover. And the only thing left to decide is when it finally happens. And this is where the story reaches its final, unavoidable truth. Because when you strip everything back, the clauses, the contracts, the rumors, the silence, this was never just about Mercedes. And it was never just about Russell. It's about power. Who has it? Who loses it? And who decides the future of Formula One? Right now, that power belongs to one driver, Max Verstappen. Because every scenario, every outcome, every possible future depends on him. If he stays at Red Bull, everything stabilizes. The pressure disappears. Russell is safe. Mercedes resets. The storm ends before it begins. If he chooses Mercedes, everything explodes. A direct takeover. A move that forces the team to sacrifice their current leader to secure the most dominant driver of this generation. And if he walks away completely, that's when the sport changes forever. Because Formula One doesn't just lose a driver. It loses its center, its reference point, the one name that defines the current era. And that kind of loss creates chaos no one can predict. But here's the part that makes this even more intense. Verstappen doesn't need Formula One. Not for money. Not for titles. Not for legacy. He already has all of it. Which means his decision will not be forced. It will be chosen. And that's what makes it so dangerous. Because when a driver has nothing to lose, he becomes impossible to control, impossible to predict, and impossible to replace. So now, every team is reacting to one reality. They are not shaping the future. They are waiting for it. Waiting for Verstappen to decide. Waiting for that single moment, where everything becomes clear. And until that moment arrives, the tension doesn't drop. It grows. Because behind every race, behind every interview, behind every silence, there is one question that nobody can escape anymore. What will Max Verstappen do? Because the answer to that question doesn't just decide one seat. It decides everything. The structure of teams, the balance of power, the direction of the sport itself. And when that answer finally comes, it won't feel like a normal transfer. It won't feel like just another headline. It will feel like a shift. A moment where Formula One moves from one era into another. And for George Russell, that moment could define everything. Stay and remain at the center of Mercedes. Or be forced out, not by failure, but by the arrival of something bigger. Something unavoidable. Something Formula One has seen before, but never at this level. Because when the best driver in the world becomes available, the sport doesn't hesitate. It changes. And this time, it might change faster and more brutally than anyone is ready for.